Greg Hensel with the Saving Swami, and we're filming our second part of the two-part series during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're here at Annie Pasto's Wine Bar and Bistro in Clifton Park, New York, and we're interviewing Connie Bramer. Connie is the CEO and founder of Get Your Rack Back. She's the author of How Connie Got Her Rack Back book. And the greatest thing is, right now today, almost 9 years from her diagnosis, Connie is one badass breast cancer survivor. So Connie, let's start with your story. It goes back almost 9 years from your diagnosis. That day, you're at work, I guess. Connie's a consultant in the automotive industry. She goes in with F&I managers at different dealerships and trains them on the products that they can then market to the people who buy automobiles at that dealership. Wonderful at her job, and I can only imagine that day when you were at work consulting, working from home, doing a webinar. Just take us through that whole situation and really that experience.
Well, the day that I was diagnosed, I had to go in for another mammogram. I had to go in for a second mammogram. And initially what happened, I'm going to just wind back a little bit.
Sure.
I had pain in my chest, and they say that cancer doesn't hurt, so I kind of was going to ignore it. Ironically, I found it on a Sunday. I was laying down, I was like, what is this pain in my chest? It's just so weird. And then I ended up having to have my annual gynecological exam just happened to be that Wednesday, because quite frankly I would have ignored it because I don't like to whine about how I'm feeling. So I thought, you know what, I'll go to my GYN appointment. And I told her about it, and she said, well, you know what, you just had a mammogram 8 months ago, but let's just get another mammogram. So I had a mammogram.
Now, is that the correct timeline, 8 months?
No, it's a year, but because I jerk around and don't do stuff like I'm supposed to, I waited 4 months after my last annual to get the mammogram.
Okay.
You know, because you know how I am by
yeah.
time, right? So I'm too busy. I'm too busy to get a mammogram. And that's what people say all the time. They need to stop saying that.
Well, we'll get to why that could have been disastrous because of family history and stuff. But go ahead. So 8 months.
So 8 months ago, prior to that, I'd had a mammogram clear. No worries. Go again, get a mammogram, and they found a spot. So I go back for another mammogram. On this one day that I had to go back for this additional mammogram, you know, my son, I have 2 kids, Alyssa and Alex. They were 7 and 8 at the time, and Alex is my dilly-dallier. And I remember thinking, this kid is going to get in the bus, or I'm going to kill him, because I'm going to have to drive to school in my pajamas on to put these kids on the bus. So I was worried about that, and I'm just saying that because you worry about stupid things, and then all of a sudden your life changes, you know, on a dime. Stops on that. So I went to get my mammogram, and I remember sitting there. I was in the outfit, the lovely hospital gown. And I remember looking at all the breast cancer statistics on the wall, and I was thinking, this can't be my time yet. And I know that we're going to talk about it later, but I'm the 4th generation of my family to be diagnosed with breast cancer. And I hate to say it,
but
I guess
you were always thinking about it.
I was always thinking about it. And come to find out, years ago when my mom was still alive, we talked about it, and she said, I was always waiting for this other shoe to drop. And it happened, and I thought, this can't be it. I have too much to do. I got little kids. This cannot happen to me today. And I remember saying, Mom, this can't be my day. I remember saying that, like, out loud in the office. Then they did the mammogram, and they look at it right away because I was coming back for a second one. So then they said, you know what, we want to do an ultrasound. So I wait. I have another bunch of images done from the mammogram. Then they say I want to do an ultrasound. I was actually diagnosed off of an ultrasound. So the radiologist comes in, and she's doing this, and she says, I'm 99% sure you have breast cancer.
Right,
And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm the 1%. What are you talking about, right? I get in the car, I'm like, I just can't even believe this. And, before that, they said, is there anybody...
And that's at the same appointment?
Yeah.
It happens that fast?
Well, for me, it did just because of my history. I think I'm, flagged in that way. But I was coming back for another mammogram. So it wasn't like it was my first one. It was the follow-up one. So I remember, being ushered into this room with a phone and a box of tissues. And they said, do you want to call anybody? And I called my dad. And, when my mom died, I remember in the procession of the funeral, in the limousine, the funeral director was a family friend of our family. And he said to my dad, he's like, now, you don't now, in a nice way, I don't know how he worded it, now you don't have to worry anymore. It's, she's okay. She's at peace. And my dad said in the front seat, I was sitting in the back, I was 26, and he said, I have my daughter to worry about. I don't have, now my worries aren't gone. And I remember him saying that, and I remember sitting there thinking, I've got to call my dad and tell my breast cancer. You know, he was, you know, I needed to call my father. So I called him, and he couldn't even talk. He was so choked up. And it was a really difficult time. And then I'm thinking, you know, what do I tell my kids? You know, they're 7 and 8. And I think, you know, this is when they think you're cool. Now they're teenagers that think I'm a jerk. But, you know, that's when they think you're a cool person. I'm thinking, I can't be this fragile person. You know, so I was diagnosed on that day.
So the relationship with your dad was pretty interesting because you guys grew up in business together.
Right. I worked for my family business.
Yeah, your dad owned car dealerships and so forth.
Yep.
So you guys became very close as you were growing up through college and really, you know, learning the business, which
Yep.
ultimately you're still in that business on the day-to-day income stuff. And I can imagine that phone call, you know, flashing back 10 years or a little over 10 years after your mom passed away,
Right.
to think that you had to break the news to him.
Yeah, it was a tough conversation. So I was diagnosed, and then immediately, you know, decision time comes. And this is something that I talk to a lot of breast cancer patients about, you know, what are my decisions? What do I, you know, do I do a lumpectomy? Do I do a mastectomy? Well, based on my history, I was like, you're going to take these girls right off. You know what I mean? That was like, when I went to see my breast surgeon, I said, you know, this is what I've got to do. But he had already made that decision. He's like, that's based on your history. You know, I'm going to do that. Now, one thing I did want to tell you about is I have a nurse navigator. And I really want to bring to light how important those women and men are in our patients' lives. A nurse navigator or the social worker, they coordinate for you, you know, who to see for your oncologist, who to see for your breast surgeon, who to see for your plastic, because, you know, she called me. Her name is Diane Young, my nurse navigator. I call her my Rock of Gibraltar. She's at Wilton Medical Arts. That's where I was diagnosed. And she said, you know, do you have an oncologist? Like, who would I know? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know any of these people. So she coordinated all of that for me and took that thought process out, because when you're diagnosed, you're just thinking, holy crap, like, what am I going to do, you know? So she coordinated all of that, saw my breast surgeon, opted to have bilateral mastectomies, and then you have to coordinate it with your plastic surgeon if you're going to do reconstruction. So they have to wait till both of those surgeons are available to do a surgery at the same time, so it can be done at one time.
And this is a whole different thing because, and last week we interviewed Lauren Kent, and we learned so much from Lauren. She's in a different place here now with you, almost 9 years. She's 18 months after diagnosis and doing wonderfully. Mm-hmm. And this conversation's a little different because when we talk about reconstruction and your age at the time, and the fact that a lot of people, I guess they opt to not do any type of reconstruction because of the pain.
Right.
There's the procedure with the stretching of the skin and the time that it takes, and you had shared with me that a lot of the folks, and we'll talk about going through the aftercare of the chemo and the radiation, but when you're in chemo, you see like a lot of the older school women who have just gone through the mastectomies. They just choose, I assume because of the pain, not to do anything.
I think some of them, you know what, I've interviewed a lot of women, and they say, you know what, I didn't really need them, so why go through it? For me, I was young, you know, 38, almost 39, and you know, I thought, I'm 39, I'm gonna have my rack back.
That's it.
Right?
It. Yeah.
So I decided, you know, I was going to do the reconstruction surgery, and it was interesting to me. The nurse at the plastic surgery office said, "Are you sure you want to do this now?" Every time I went there, she's like, "Are you sure you want to do it?" And now I know why they asked so many times, because it is such an arduous process. I mean, I write about it in my book, and I'm very candid about it. And
we'll talk about the book and talk more, obviously, a lot about the foundation and
Yeah.
the initiatives and the drive and the direction that's going in, and especially with the foundation and where you donate the money. Nurse navigators, probably because of this individual who was so influential in not only your treatment but your aftercare and your success. That's why you work so closely with the nurse navigators.
Yes.
I want to touch a lot on that as well, because they're basically a critical part of the whole process.
They absolutely are. They're my lifeline to our patients, to their patients and our patients collectively. They're our lifeline. But when I went to have my reconstruction done, I had, like, if something can happen, it happens to me, Greg. You know that, right? So I had an infection throughout the time frame of being built up, my chest being built up. And one of my friends is like, I had a staph infection. Actually, your wonderful wife took me to my appointment. And one of my friends said, "What did they wipe your boob on a gym floor? Like, how do you get a staph infection?" Right? So I had to have one of them removed for months.
But that's tough to shake. Like, if you right, there's a waiting period.
Oh yeah. So I don't know if I can say this, but I called myself like the one-titted wonder for a while because I had one boob. And I remember I was such an idiot. I went out to the Rusty Nail one night with a bunch of friends when I shouldn't have, been having the cocktail during chemo, and I had stuffing in my boob, where I would have had a breast, and I'm like, why do I have all this stuffing down in my stomach area? And it had like slid down, and I'm sitting in a bar and thinking, what must people have thought? But you have to laugh. I try to laugh a lot about all my little antics.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, you know what? Let's take 1 second then.
Yeah.
We'll get a little off track about Saratoga and the wig and the tree.
Oh my God. My brother and his wife came up from Charlotte and they said, get dressed, we're going out. So I put on a dress and I have my expander, so I'm thinking I'm looking all right. I got my wig, I'm completely, I have maybe that much hair on my head. And it's Saratoga, August, so you gotta park like way far away. We were going to a restaurant downtown. And we're walking along and I'm wearing heels. And I'm with my brother, his wife, her sister, and her husband. And they're like, we're taking you out, you need to get out of the house. So I'm walking down and I duck to go under a tree and my wig goes and it's hanging in the tree. It was like slow-mo going down like this. And me, like some people would have just died, but so mortified. There were tons of people walking up and down the street and I just sat there and I laughed so hard. You laugh so hard your head hurts. My head turned bright red and I'm laughing. My brother calls me Cone. He goes, Cone, get the wig, get the wig, get the wig. And people have this misnomer about wigs. They think that when you put a wig on, it just, goes on, it's, smooth, just like it is on the mannequin head.
Right.
You've got to like monkey with it, It was hilarious. I remember looking in the window of a Jeep Grand Cherokee, a black Jeep Grand Cherokee, I'm going like this, try to smooth it down. It was just, funny story. A lot of funny things happened to me while I was going through
you documented a lot of those funny experiences on your blog when you were going through the process, the healing process and the aftercare process and fighting, battling, and beating this whole thing. And that, I think, was the inspiration for a lot, like your book, Get Your Act Back. You took a lot of the experiences that are in your book, which is wonderful. So you go through now the reconstructive surgery, or you start the reconstructive process, and then how long does that take, and where does that bring you? And at that point, where are you in starting the foundation and writing the book and doing the blog? Just kind of to move us along the timeline, because there's so much to talk about, and it's really so exciting. The story itself just has just so much substance to it.
Well, first I had chemotherapy. So I start the reconstruction, then I have chemotherapy, and I had to have the one expander taken out. So then I start chemo.
I got to interrupt you again.
Yeah.
So you talk about, this is you being funny, but because of your car business, the car business that you're in, and your experience in car business, and your family in car business, and the knowledge of F&I, finance and insurance, talk about the mastectomy as the comp, and then the chemotherapy as the collision,
That's
like
exactly
your insurance, right?
Right, because you get diagnosed with cancer, you have a choice to have a lumpectomy, mastectomy, so that, I call it the removal, is your comp, right, comprehensive insurance. Then the collision, I would say, is anything that's preventative. I mean, like collision is if someone hits you, you don't want cancer hitting you again, so you do chemotherapy or you do radiation, whatever.
Or in your case, it was
just chemo.
Chemo.
Yep. And then hormone therapy.
And hormone therapy. That's what I was trying to think.
Right. So another thing we've been talking about too is how different breast cancers are. You get diagnosed with breast cancer, it's just not, a blanket breast cancer. There's all different types of breast cancer. There's different genomes now in the cancer cell, in the cancer itself, in the mass. So
that has to do with their ability to try, I guess, to put the correct plan for curing it together. So they do some genetics, they analyze the tumor, and then decide the path to take. That's different now, though.
Right, it wasn't like that when I was diagnosed, but I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I think about my mom who was diagnosed almost 30 years ago with a radical mastectomy, right, where her chest was actually concave in, and she didn't do reconstructive, and I think that was her choice at the time. I think they did do it back then, but not to the superb effect that they have now. I mean, they do wonderful things now. But yes, they do all this, I don't want to say genetic testing, they call it an Oncotype DX, and I'm not a medical professional, but I've done a little bit of research on it. So you have your tumor or your mass examined in that way so that they say, okay, well, this is the best treatment for this patient. So based on the size, based on a lot of other factors, they contribute to what they do for your treatment.
Is at that point, is that where they decide, well, you know what, we're gonna, instead of doing a mastectomy as our recommendation, we're gonna try chemo first to
Right.
shrink the tumor, to then do a lumpectomy instead?
Right.
And there's a lot of success with that.
There's a lot of success with that. You know, people are saying that, now say people, the medical community is now saying that if you have clear margins on a lumpectomy, it's the same survival rate as if you were to have a mastectomy.
Wonderful.
And you know, one of the first things you think of when you have breast cancer is let's just remove it, let's just get rid of it, you know. But now there's a lot more science involved than there was even 9 years ago when I was diagnosed. So they're really looking at the individual patient. You know, one of the things like, you know, we talk about how things can be cookie cutter in certain aspects of life. You know, you go to a PF Chang's, they got the same thing every time, right? Cancer's not that way. And everything is different. Every patient's different. Every type of cancer is different. So you can, you know, I talked to 3 breast cancer patients the other day. We were sitting in a room together. They each had breast cancer, but all 4 of us had different treatments. All healthy now, but 4 different ways to get to that end result.
I can go into something a little different. I know this is kind of a sensitive subject with a lot of people who are having treatments done, but a lot of the path that people take, the road they travel down to be cured, doesn't insurance play a big part of that in what treatments are offered or what's available to them?
I think it does in a lot of respects, but also the physician is fighting for that, for that specific treatment. You know, I had a CAT scan, a full body CAT scan after my diagnosis. I had a CAT scan, had a MUGA scan. And that MUGA scan looks at your heart because your heart functioning can be affected by the chemotherapy that I had. So they look at that. I have not had a single one since.
Full body CAT scan.
Nothing. And some patients that I talk to have one every year. So it depends on, you know, what was your cancer? Was it breast cancer, you know, type 2A? Was there lymph node involvement? You know, everything's different. And I think a lot of it is dictated by insurance.
You had said if you didn't have any lymph node involvement at all, it would have been, not cookie cutter, but you would have had a much easier time
Yes.
in the whole procedure and the whole
Right.
aftercare and the
Right.
whole curing and healing.
I had a completely skewed view of what my process was going to be. You know, I thought that when I had my breast removed, I would get implants right then, call it a day, I'm done. And for some people, they do that, but they don't do the implant right away. You have expanders. There's still a process. No, you can't get away from a process unless you don't do anything, you know. But I thought, you know, that I was going to wake up with my boobs, and I knew that I wasn't going to. But in my thought process, I thought, you know, I'm going to end up being done. And then I had lymph node involvement. And again, that's my collision insurance was to have chemo and hormone therapy. There's different levels of cancer. I mean, different types. Like there's triple negative. There's estrogen positive, which is what I had. There's
Well, talk
different
about
types.
that. The estrogen positive means that, correct me if I'm wrong, well, you can't have any estrogen
Right,
in your body,
right.
or it could
Proliferate, right. So there's a lot of different types. So, you know, you have to talk to your doctor and see exactly what, you know, your situation is. And one of the things that you and I were talking about earlier is how, you know, life-changing it is to sit at the doctor's office and they hand you your statistics.
Yeah, your
Like-
future is a statistic.
Like my future was, it wasn't a pie chart, it was a graph. And it said, you know, if you do nothing, 5 years, you have a 50% chance of still being here. You know, I can't remember all the different ones, but it said if you do, you know, if you do a mastectomy, you have a 70% chance. If you do mastectomy and chemo, you have an 80% chance. Whatever it was, like my best chance was 85%, and I'm almost 9 years out.
That's right. That's
Still
right.
here.
It's what, next month is 9 years?
Next month's 9 years, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, how important is it for folks maybe just get when you get that diagnosis, that's ground zero. You know
Right.
that your life is going to change, and it can be like probably, it has to be the most traumatic experience that anyone could ever be part of. How important is it to pick a doctor, in your opinion, that matches your personality, because it is a long road of recovery?
Right. It is crucial. And I talk to patients a lot about that. You know, if you go, and we've talked about how great the care is in the Capital Region. I mean, the Capital Region has amazing physicians. amazing protocols. They're doing a lot of the same protocols that they're doing at Sloan or doing at Dana-Farber. And for some cancers, it makes sense to go someplace else. But here, for breast cancer, it's just the best care ever. I believe that. But my oncologist, he and I hit it off. You have to have somebody that, you've got a common ground with. You've got not a personality clash. That's really critical because you're there all the time. You live there for quite a while. I just got, I'm 9 years out almost, and I just got released to a 1-year appointment. You go.
Does it go 3 months, 6 months, then a year?
How? You go. You're there all the time. Yeah. 2 times a week usually, and then you go to every month, and then you go to every 3 months, then you go to every 6 months, and now I just graduated to yearly. So that was a big thing, and I said to the girl in the office, I'm like, no offense, but I don't want to see you for a year. It's just like, no offense taken.
But you developed tremendously deep-rooted relationships with not only the receptionists and the RNs.
They're like your family.
Yeah, and the doctor.
They become your family.
So you have to, just like anything, when it comes to your health, you have to choose wisely, right?
Yep, you have to choose wisely. And you also need to pay attention to your body. That whole thing that I felt the pain in my chest, that was my tell. And I was really lucky that I just happened to have that appointment because my friends were like, oh, it's probably fibrocystic breast, she'll be fine. And I'm glad if I did not have that appointment, I might have let that go. And when I had my biopsy, they found two places, 2 spots. One was invasive, one was non-invasive. So if I had let that go, I might not be here. So you got to listen to your body. You are your best advocate.
Yeah, Lauren had said something very similar because, I guess most people hear or read about the fact that it doesn't hurt. And that's why when she had pain, she was like, well, it's probably not cancer, even though my mom, same kind of situation, and got in and got it diagnosed. And it's, it seems like there's some things that are consistent, but everything is different, and there really isn't as much commonality as you would think.
Right.
Now there's so many ways to treat it, so many different types of cancer. You were sharing with me the fact that someone can have cancer in their liver, cancer in their lungs, but it's breast cancer.
That's right.
Is that because it's traveled?
Right.
Yeah, different types of treatment for all those things. So now we're at 9 years next month.
Yep.
You're out of the woods, like you said, knock on wood, everything's great. You've created this wonderful not-for-profit foundation called Get Your Rack Back. And you're an author. You wrote a book, How Connie Got Her Rack Back. The book's older now. We've known each other so long, but you didn't just write the book. You wrote this about your experiences during the process.
Right.
What, 6-7 years ago for the book?
Yeah, 2012.
2012.
5 years ago.
5 years ago. Wonderful. And I want to touch on. We talked a little bit about your dad in the dealerships and your business background and your acumen in F&I and business and with automotive marketing and that type of thing. Wonderful. And now as you build this foundation, the foundation is really put in place to bridge the gap between the tremendous research that's done from large companies, American Cancer Society, there's so many different companies that do tremendous scientific research, but that research takes so long that it sometimes doesn't directly assist the people within the communities who have everyday issues of filling up their gas tank, paying a copay to go get a radiation treatment, paying tuition for their kids' school, providing books or food. I mean, there's a million things when you're in the process of treatment that you just want to focus on getting healthy. And your work is affected, your ability to work more often or the same amount is affected. I mean, there's so many different things that people need help with on a day-to-day. And I know that Get Your Rack Back Foundation has done a wonderful job already in its infancy as you're now ramping everything up to help so many families.
That's our hope. Yeah. Well, let me backtrack about the book for 1 second, if you don't mind. So I had a blog. One of my friends said to me, have a CaringBridge website. It'll give you a platform to just write how you're doing so that you're not inundated with a lot of phone calls and emails, because everyone says, how are you doing? Or what's your prognosis? I had that question a couple times. I'm gonna die, right? So
the doctor, you went into the doctor, the doctor that you ended up not getting along with.
Yeah.
And he said, well, Connie, how you feeling today?
I'm like, how old do you think I feel? I have cancer, right? Anyway, I wrote this blog, and then people would write me back. And I was not one who said, I'll go to a support group. I didn't, and the reason I didn't do that is I needed to do my cancer journey with my blinders on. I didn't want to be, I'm a very thoughtful person in that if you're going through something, I tend to carry it. And I struggle with that with my patients. I'll talk to you about that later too, but I do struggle with that. But I didn't want to have to carry anybody else's burden because I would feel bad. Like I'm always thinking that someone is much worse off than I am. So I didn't go to support group meetings. This blog actually ended up being my support. I would write something, and I always wrote about, silly stuff that happened. Like my doctor asked me, how was your first chemo treatment? And I said, do you have the astronaut pill? And he's like, what are you talking about? What astronaut pill? I'm like, the one that they die if something happens to them, they just take that pill. He's like, what are you talking about? Anyway, I would write, silly stuff in there because I'm kind of a smart aleck, as you know. So I would write things in there. People would write me back, and it kind of became like this, conversation that I was having with with a bunch of friends. Like really 100 people were on my blog writing me things, which was awesome. And when I was done and I was better, I stopped writing. And one of my friends said, we're so glad you're well, but we miss your writing. We miss all your little stories. So I was sitting on the couch with one of my girlfriends, Renee, and she said, you know what?
The journey is really empowering for a lot of people who aren't going through the same trials and tribulations that you are. It's empowering. And that's the beauty of, not only the beauty of this book, the beauty of your organization and the beauty of what you've come through for 9 years. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. Appreciate that. Well, Renee said, I can totally see you sitting on the couch with Matt Lauer telling the story. And I'm like, who doesn't want to sit on the couch with Matt Lauer? So I said, you know what, maybe I will write it because it's my way of, bridging the gap. I say that term a lot, but bridging the gap between the story that I portrayed and the real inside what was going on. Because I'm always a Pollyanna. No one ever sees me in a bad mood. I always try to be that way because, you want people to see you.
There's the other thing, the annoyance that you have where someone, after what you've been through, obviously, and continue to build and work on a day-to-day with people who are, new to the diagnosis or in the beginning of their treatment or middle or late stages of the treatment. Someone calls you up, Connie, I'm having such a horrible day. They didn't have sweet and low for my coffee, or the line at Starbucks was 5 cars and they're cursing on the phone.
Yeah.
And like,
who cares? Right? You're healthy. I don't want to hear it. So I wrote this book as a way to just kind of bury my cancer in a box in the backyard with a bow on it. And it was very cathartic to write it. So for a year, I spent about a year writing this book, and I would copy and paste all the things from my blog, and then I would write the behind the scenes, really what happened, how was I really feeling? Because I think now that I've written it, I think the important thing of telling my story is that it's really relatable. One woman wrote me a message a couple weeks ago, and she said, I read your book, and now I feel normal. I feel like my journey, I'm not crazy. Because you kind of feel crazy. I was telling you how I would wake up and I'd be like, Connie Bramer's going to lose 2 more hairs today. And I would get up on the pillow and I'm like, they're there. So I wrote the book, and then I thought, you know what? I'm going to have a book launch party or like a thank you party to thank my friends and family for just being there for me, just sticking it out, for me and my kids. I mean, there were days that I was curled up in a ball and just couldn't even get up. It was bad, and there were, a couple of my chemo treatments caused neuropathy in my legs. I couldn't walk. I mean, I had an allergic reaction to a couple of things. It's a really trying time. So I wanted to.
The chemotherapy can create a whole host of additional health issues. Right.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Autoimmune diseases, a whole bunch of other things can come from it. Not to scare people off because, the treatment. You need the treatment. Don't think about what's happening tomorrow. Think about today and what you're going to do to solve the problem, which is your cancer. It's very critical that you have it, not worry about what's to come, because stuff does come for some, not for everybody. But anyway, I decided to have this book launch party, and we had 100 people at this event. And I thought, you know what? I know a lot of people in business because I'm in business. I'm a businesswoman. Let me find people who want to donate something, and we'll turn it into a fundraiser. So I had partnered at that time with the American Cancer Society's Making Strides Against Breast Cancer, because that was a cause that was near and dear to my heart. And I gave them part of the profits of my book, and I also donated money to them with our fundraiser. So the first year we raised $4,600, and then the following year we did it again. We raised over 10, and it just has grown and grown and grown. And then the third year I split it between Hope Club, And then another charity called Floyd Warriors. I'm friends with Lisa. She's the founder of that. So she does in-home care for people, so with other things. So she took that money. And then afterwards, I got, you know what? I want to know the people we're helping. So I want to change things. So one of my friends in high school had been having food delivered to my house from Pizza Hut when I was having chemo. And the Pizza Hut guy comes to my door on a Tuesday night. I'm like, I didn't order pizza. And I send him away. He comes back, he goes, are you Connie? I go, yeah. He goes, well, this is for you. So for a while, I didn't know who was delivering it to me. I'd write on my caring for site, who is delivering me flowers? Who's delivering me flowers? Who's delivering me, I'm a type A personality. I want to know who's doing things.
Right.
But anyway, he delivered that food to me. I remember sitting in the chemotherapy chair one day, and I'm like, you know what? If he can do that for me, there has to be a way that when I'm better, I can do that for more people. So that was really the impetus to start Get Your Act Back, was meal delivery. One less thing to think about at kids 7 and 8, when Pizza Hut was delivered that night, and it was when they did the pastas, the salad, and then the breadsticks with the drizzle on it. My kids were like, yeah, it's Pizza Hut night, And it was huge weight off of me, because when you're sick and you have chemo, like, you don't want to cook. It's just, there's a lot of, behind the scenes struggles.
Well, you've taken that whole personal experience and brought it leaps and bounds with Get Your Act Back organization and charity, because the $500 increments, basically you work on $500 increments.
That's right, yep.
The $500 increments that you give families in need are amazing, because we have restaurant gift cards, gas gift cards, grocery gift cards. I mean, those, the alleviation of the financial stresses associated. Again, you talked to me about co-pays.
Yeah, that's
you
huge.
go in for radiation or treatment, and it's different now because of the co-pays. It used to be the insurance company settled it, and then at some point you would make up the difference with the insurance company.
Right.
But now, don't they want net prepayment?
They want your copay the day of. And what happened was, I had started my 501c3, this nonprofit organization, and I became known as the Get Your Act Back chick, because our events were called Get Your Act Back Gala, Get Your Act Back event. So I was asking my kids, they're like, Mom, just go by Get Your Act Back. So I decided to do Get Your Act Back. I did everything, set everything up to do gas gift cards, grocery gift cards, and some financial assistance. But they ask you and this is a learning experience as a business person, what is entailed to become a nonprofit. Like, that was a huge eye opener, because it's great to have the idea. Then when you actually have to put it to paper and make the task happen, it's an arduous process. I'm so happy I did it, but I've learned a lot about nonprofits. So I went to see my breast surgeon because I had a scare, and it turns out it was okay. But he was telling me, as I was telling him about my charity, he said, I had a patient I lost because she chose to work instead of having her treatment, because she needed to work to provide for her family. And I'm like, we can't have this happen.
Right.
Like this can't. What are we living in? What world are we living in that people have to choose to work or live?
Right.
And it's very unfortunate, because a lot of the patients we help are having to choose between groceries and paying for treatment. What we want to do, when I started this foundation...
This is a big place where the nurse navigator comes into play, right?
What happens is nurse navigators find patients that are on the cusp of not getting help from the hospital or the oncology office, because they have assistance for a lot of patients. I want to help people who are right on the edge. I don't want to have to ask you for your financials. I'm not... And if I get really big, I shouldn't say if, when we get really big, I might have to work towards some kind of a financial statement, but I feel like that is offensive. Like, as a cancer survivor, if someone said, I'll help you, but I need your pay stub, I don't want to do that. I'm relying on these nurse navigators and social workers to properly vet the patients to say, okay, this patient needs assistance.
And ultimately, if it's on the cusp or you're not quite sure, you always err on the side of the patient. You're like, you know what, it's good.
Right. And you know what? I can paint outside the lines a little bit, and my attorney will probably shoot me for saying that, but I do, because it's my organization. If I want to help somebody that needs something a little outside our avenue, I do it. And as an example, a couple years ago when we first started, there was a woman who needed help paying her oil bill to have heat for her home. Single mom, 4 kids, breast cancer. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm kind of ballsy. I'm going to call the oil company. So I called the oil company and I said, can you tell me what, this woman owes? I said, I'm calling from a charity. He's like, well, I can't tell you that, but if you give me a number, I can tell you if it will cover it. And I said, if I pay $500 for this woman to have heat for her oil bill, will she have heat for the whole winter? He said, well, it's close. It's a couple $100 shy. I said, well, let me ask you this question. This customer has been a good customer of yours for how long? 5 years. She's not to overshare information, but she's got a cancer diagnosis with young kids, and she needs heat for her home. Would you be willing to fill in that gap for me and pay that difference for her? And he said, I'll do it. That's the stuff
that's it.
That we have to have happen. Like we're going to start.
That's how you literally are bridging the gap,
right,
between the large companies and the research and all of the science and all of the big donations to letting it affect a family immediately, so they can get, like you said, to get to the next day. Let's just get to the next day.
Just get to the next day. Because it is, I'm a planner. I want to know, what am I doing next Tuesday? When you have cancer, you're figuring out, what am I doing in the next 5 minutes? It's a game changer. And for us, we want to make sure that we're impacting somebody, that it's helping them that day. And the beauty of what we do is, you can donate to us, Greg. You won't know who you're helping, but it could be the person that's behind you in Price Chopper or Hannaford, or behind you in the mall. It could be, it's the ability of not knowing who you're helping, but the comfort of knowing you're helping somebody that lives in your community. And that's what we are trying to do in many communities. I mean, we started here in Clifton Park. We help down to Albany and up into Glens Falls for this chapter. We're starting a chapter in Plattsburgh, where there's a great need. I want to start a chapter down in the Bronx and one out in Syracuse. That's my goal for 2018, to just find people who have my passion. Because if you're not in it for the right reasons, to really impact someone's life, I need you to be in it for the reason that I am, and that's what it is. And I want to make sure that I have people that are really patient focused in those areas, that want to create this dream of mine. Make this dream happen, where we're helping more and more people. I mean, Susan G. Komen started out small. I'm not saying Get Your Rack Back is going to be a national thing. It could be someday, but we have to start somewhere, and there's a lot of people that need to be impacted.
Well, it's a wonderful foundation already, and you're going to be growing by leaps and bounds. And what I like to say is, you're a businesswoman with a tremendous business acumen. You understand numbers, you understand finance, and along the way in your career, you just happen to be also someone who is diagnosed with breast cancer. So you've beat it, you're on the other end of it. Next month is 9 years, and you're using your understanding and knowledge of business and finance to now successfully grow this foundation that you started. I know right now 100% of the proceeds and profits from your book go to the foundation, which immediately helps families like we just talked about.
Right.
You do an annual golf outing. You have a couple times a year you're at the Funny Bone, including tonight.
Right.
And you do a yearly gala in the summertime. Is that July? June. Which is amazing. And talk about the other things that you foresee, because I know you want these other areas to grow, which are really cool. So you're looking at, like you said, the Bronx, you're looking at Plattsburgh, you're looing at, in addition to that, Syracuse, and God only knows.
Right.
Because there's a need everywhere.
There's a need any place. You can drop a pin on a map of the U.S. and there's a need. You would be hard pressed to find anyone who has not been affected by cancer. I mean, if I stopped you on the street and I'd say, Greg, do you know anybody who's had cancer? You know somebody.
Yeah,
everybody knows somebody. It affects everyone.
It's an epidemic.
So one of the things that we want to do is...
So get specific about what you're thinking, because I want to talk about also how people can donate, how people can give, some of the things that you guys do to increase what the foundation takes in, so you can help more families. And I know you have another initiative of trying to get 1,000 people to donate $10.
Yes.
That's $10,000, but that helps 20 families with the $500.
Yep.
So I don't. Again, there's so much great stuff here with the foundation and what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, we're trying, and I would just backtrack a little bit. We're trying not to inundate people with too many events, but there are different events that we have that relate to different people. So we just started the golf tournament this year. Our gala has been something that we've had every year since 2012, and it's just grown and grown and grown. I mean, we've had 300 people, we've had 200 people, different areas. I try to spread the love in the capital region with different restaurants, because I think it's important to as a business person, I want to help people who help us. You know, that's important to me.
And you grabbed some tremendous sponsorship too for the event.
Yes, and wonderful local businesses who support us.
And they're all listed on the website. We'll give you all that information. It's really great.
Yeah, they've been great to us. But we've got the gala. We just started a golf tournament this year. That was amazing. We had a fantastic turnout our first time out. Our golf pro was like, "This is amazing. You did a great job." So
and some of the people were just then exposed to
never knew what we
the
did.
cause then.
Right, never knew what we did, and they said, "Wow." You know, because we not only help, I know we're doing Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but we help men and women with all different types of cancer. So it's not specific just to breast cancer, although my name is Katie Rackback. So we have that. We have the comedy show we do a couple of times a year. We have events, you know, here and there, like something at the Loft. The Loft has been really wonderful to us. They're outfitting our models for our Survivor calendar. This is our second year doing a Survivor calendar because I think it's very important to put a face to cancer. You know, you don't know, looking at someone, that they might have had cancer. You wouldn't know I had cancer, you know? So you don't know, but it's important to see, you know, that this is a mom, a wife, a mother, a husband, a son, you know, who has 4 kids, he's working a job. Like, it's important to put a face to it. So we're working on that. I'm actually doing another photo shoot this weekend for that. So that's an important thing. And then we have that calendar ready for our Diamonds in December event. And we call it Diamonds in December because Hoff Jewelers is a wonderful supporter of ours, and they donate.
Also right here in Clifton Park.
Yes, right here in Clifton Park. They donate a piece of jewelry for us, a diamond piece of jewelry, that we raffle off at this Diamonds in December. But the Diamonds in December event is our facilitator of our Christmas stocking drive. So when I was
Which is a tremendous success and has been growing
Right.
really exponentially.
This is our 3rd year.
What, a little over 100 the first year,
Yeah.
256
Yeah.
last year, do over 400
Right,
stockings.
we're gonna
Talk
do
about that.
Yeah, we're going to do over 400 stockings this year. Well, you know, when I was diagnosed, it was around Christmas time, you know, before Christmas. And, you know, you want to make sure you're doing all your shopping ahead of time. And I thought, what are these people doing who are in the midst of chemo in December? What does a single mom do, you know, who's like me, curled up in a ball after her second treatment, not feeling well, and she's got 2 little kids? What are we doing? What can we do to impact that family? Because the thing that a lot of people don't look at, and I want to talk about this a little bit, is that cancer not only affects the patient, it affects the family. You know, there's a direct correlation on how everybody's feeling based on that one person who might be the rock of your family. For me, I was the rock of my family. And I want to just tell you one quick thing. You know, my kids were 7 and 8. And my first chemo, you know, I cut my hair shorter. And then the second chemo, I needed to shave my head because my oncologist said, you know, you're gonna lose all your hair. You know, either do it on your own terms or you let it fall out. And I was thinking, I don't want to be shedding like 5 alpacas in my house. So I'm gonna take initiative and I'm gonna do something.
Right, long sure.
Right? Right? So Alyssa was 8, and I used to cut Alex's hair, and I am kind of a fanatic about being clean, so I would actually cut his hair and have the garbage can like here, and he'd be like, "Mom,
Use
really?"
the Flowbee.
But I had the thing, and I would do that. So I was in my closet, and I was reaching for the razor that I had up high, and I sat on this little stool, because, you know, I'm short, I have to have a stool to get my clothes. So I was sitting on the stool, and it just hit me, like, I'm gonna be bald. And I don't know, it really was my greatest struggle, and in retrospect that seems so foolish, but it was really a huge struggle of mine, and I really thought about it all the time. It was crazy, but I sat there, and I sat in my closet, and I was crying. And my daughter, who was 8, and this is gonna choke me up, but she sat down below me and reached my hands, and she goes, "Mommy, it's gonna be okay." And I remember thinking, like, you know, an 8-year-old to like have that insight. You know, so my kids, even though I hid a lot from them, they've really grown from this experience to see what's important and what's not important, like the whole sweet and low packet scenario there. But she shaved my head, and after she shaved my head, we were each sitting in a chair in my bathroom, like looking in the mirror, and I'm completely bald. And she goes, "Mom, that was really hard. I'm gonna go make you a special dessert." So she went downstairs, and she made me some ice cream with whipped cream on it, and we sat and ate it with 2 spoons. And I thought, you know, that's a moment that I'll never forget. And she just told me yesterday that she wrote about it in her college essay, because she's going to college next year. So my point in telling you that story is that what goes on in the family with an illness, of someone who's ill, it affects everybody, and that stays with them. So I thought, for Christmas, how can we help people in that way to lighten that load so that they have more memories to share with their kids, and they're doing more things, and they're not having to go out and do it, that it's just done. So we started this Christmas stocking drive 2 years ago, and it was just kind of a whim thought. I'm like, I'm gonna just do it, because when I do something, Greg, you know me, like, I'm gonna do it.
Oh, yeah.
So I did it, and then we just had a huge following. It was crazy. So then last year we sold out. We had 140 people wedged into the wine bar. It was crazy. Upstairs, downstairs, we did a mannequin challenge. Like, we always do fun things. I have 3 rules for all my events. 1, I want you to think it's a classy affair. 2, I want you to know your money went to a great cause. And 3, that you had a freaking awesome time. Like, those are my 3 rules. You've got to have a good time. I don't, fundraisers, it's a lot of an ask to ask people to come to fundraisers. You got to make it a fun time that they're like, when's the next one? I want to be back. And maybe the stocking stuffer one isn't for you. Maybe the gala is. Maybe the golf tournament. Like we talked about doing a 5K walk run. That's my next project.
Yeah, that'll be fun to work together on that. I would love to do anything I possibly can as an avid runner. I know a lot of people in the running community, and that'll be great, because we want it to be the same thing. You want it to be classy. You want them to know that their money went to a good cause, and on top of everything else, you want to make sure everyone has fun.
Well, and it's a good thing that you're offering your help, because I only run if someone's chasing me.
That's right. Why are you chasing me? Why are you running? Why are you chasing me? Why are you running?
Oh my God.
That's awesome. So talk about the website.
Yeah.
It's getyourrackback.
It's getyourrackback.org.
Getyourrackback.org.
There's a spot to donate. What we are going to start doing, I've got to get through this comedy show. We got to plan the event. Now, the event for the Stocking Stuffer Drive, our Diamonds in Summer, is going to be at the Marriott Courtyard here in Clifton Park on Plank Road.
Okay.
And that's going to be December 8th. I haven't gotten the ticket price yet. I'm waiting on the food pricing, but I'm going to figure it out.
That'll be right on the website. Everyone can look at it.
That'll be on our website. That's a great time. You come, you bring maybe $5, $10 worth of stocking stuffers. And I don't make you stuff stockings. I make my kids and their soccer teams do that. You're not going to do that. But
what about in the month of November, say some local businesses wanted to put like a donation box or something there, and then all those things would be part of the stockings?
That would be beyond awesome.
Okay,
yes.
All right, beautiful.
So the other campaign we're going to start, because people are doing, want to have a couple tax deductions for doing a donation. I think everybody, and maybe I'm overstepping here, has $10. And I want to do a 10 for 20 campaign starting in November, probably November 15th. I got to get it up on my website. But you donate $10, we have 1,000 people who donate $10. That's helping 20 families. And it's just, your $10, like, that means so much to somebody. A woman wrote me the other day that we gave $500 gift card to a local, to Price Chopper. And she wrote me and she said, thank you so much. As a single mom, this really helped me. She's got 3 kids, and it helped her get through 6 weeks of groceries.
It's incredible.
And she was so happy about that.
But it's so much money. It may not seem like a lot of money to a lot of people, but $500, if you then relate that to, you're not going to have to worry about groceries for the next 6 weeks, and you can focus on your family and your health.
Right.
It's priceless. It turns into a priceless donation.
Right. I don't want people having to worry about the money. And it's financially devastating. I just recently, I'm 9 years out, recently just paid off all my medical bills. And luckily I was able to pay them all this time, but it's a lot out of people. There's a lot of people who filed medical bankruptcy. I want people to focus on what's my here and now, what's my plan to get better. I don't care about the copay thing, and unfortunately they've got to pay them. There's a lot of insurance issues out there with having to pay your bill, and I want to make sure people have that ability to pay it. But if we can pay, 10 radiation treatment appointments at $50 a pop, those $50, that relieves someone's mind. And it's sad to me that we had a recent breast cancer patient that reached out to us through the Nurse Navigator that needed to have help with her copays. She didn't want to book her radiation until she knew she could get assistance from us. That broke my heart. What world are we living in that you've got to worry about that? It's upsetting to me. So we're trying to make a difference on a per patient basis.
Family by family,
Family by
patient
family,
by patient. cause by cause,
Right.
growing Get Your Rack Back. It's getyourrackback.org. Doing a wonderful job. I'm hoping for the
Thanks,
next
Greg.
one in the Bronx, Syracuse, Plattsburgh, growing the capital region. Anything I can do to help, I'm always here.
You're the
And
bomb.
thank you for being badass.
You're awesome. Thanks, Greg.
So it's getyourrackback.org. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and donate often, donate early, donate now. We're going to get 1,000 families to donate $10. We're going to have a wonderful initiative. We're going to share everything on Facebook. This was part 2 of our interview series for breast cancer awareness. Thank you so much to Lauren Kent for the interview last week, and thank you so much to Connie Bramer of Get Your Rack Back. Thanks for
you.
watching.
Thank you.
See you soon.